Hey, Dad.
Yes,
How are
not
you?
not bad, not bad, not bad. Now, so you have this meeting being recorded, but I can't see you now. But okay,
It's okay. You can hear me though, right?
yeah, I can do that. Yeah, yeah.
So it's just because you're on your phone and I'm on the computer, so I see both of us.
Oh, okay, good. Okay,
And it
you know you.
might be scrolling like sometimes on the phone, whenever the person who's speaking, you can see the person who's speaking on your phone versus.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. Well, yeah, because like right now, your mom's back there now hooking up our computer. Because I don't know the first thing about it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's another topic for a different day.
you're right.
All right, so we've been trying to get this interview done for a while now. What? Why are you puffing all up like you?
Well, because see, I'm looking at it from a distorted.
Oh, okay, all right. So we've been trying to do this interview for a minute now. So today we finally got it done, or getting it done. So I wanted to have a similar conversation like I had with Mom and when we talked about Aunt Mary, but I wanted to talk to you about like your career and um just your life. Like it's kind of like I don't know, it's like it is a memory that I will always have that can be on the internet that I can always refer to when you or Mom, you're not here anymore. Like I'll always have your voice in this moment that I can share with other people. So um when you were in high school, which you grew up in Youngstown, Ohio, and you were in high school, you went to South High School. We don't need to go all the way back to grammar school or elementary school, even though, just so everyone knows, my dad has every report card that he has ever gotten in his office in folders with all his, even his citizenship reports that he got. Like he still has them, and my
I,
mom and I joke with him about that.
I have my scrapbooks from Little League, my report cards. I have stuff out about
um
it.
so we're going to jump ahead to when you were in high school and when you were playing football and running track and playing baseball, and you got a scholarship to Ohio University to play football. Did you get other scholarships for like other sports like track or baseball, or did you get other scholarship offers for football even?
Well, they were a lot of them were combined. Like I could have gone to Miami of Ohio. I could have run track and played football. Toledo was basically football, but I could have had up. I could have run track too. But the thing, football was a football. I mean, Ohio University was a football scholarship, but the track coach actually was the one that was instrumental there because I had an opportunity to run track, but I was on a football scholarship. So I always felt obligated to Coach Huntsman because he actually recruited. That's why I went to OU, ended up going to OU, even though I was on a football scholarship with Coach Hess. But Coach Huntsman, who was a track coach, was very, very instrumental in me going there, why I went there.
Oh,
Back,
so was Coach Huntsman the guy when we were driving one year and we stopped in Knoxville and
yes, he was the head track coach at Tennessee. And when we
oh
were going to
wow,
stop by him and talk to Coach Huntsman.
I
Yes.
remember that. That I remember us stopping in Knoxville to see him. But I
Right.
didn't know who he was at the time. But just you mentioning that his name, like I now remember who he was, and
Yes.
because I remember stopping at his house, and he was like a really nice man. Um, and what's funny is, I do you remember like a few years ago we were cleaning out the garage and we found your offer letter for, or not your
Oh,
offer letter, but your renewal letter for your scholarship for at Ohio University.
yes. It's in the garage. Everything's in the garage. Everything it's down there somewhere. I'll find it. Yes. It was
Yeah.
a letter.
No, no, we don't need you to find it, but much to Mom's dismay, everything is in the garage.
That's right.
Um, okay, so did you why did you decide to go to OU versus University of my, like just because of Coach Huntsman or
Well, yeah. Well, the thing that happened, the scholarships that I like Miami of Ohio, they were football and track and things like that. So Ohio University, what happens? It was a full ride, no ands, ifs, and buts about it, just football. And then I had like Coach Hess, when he gave it to me, he said I can run track if I want to, play football if I want to. And that was something that motivated me, because at that time he said it was like, um, I could run track if I wanted to, play football if I wanted to make him any difference, And that was in the back of my mind the whole time. And that's why, when he tried to get me not to run track in the spring, felt that I needed spring practice, because I only played spring practice my freshman year. After that, I ran track because I felt obligated to Coach Huntsman. So it probably hurt me in some ways, because wasn't in the weight room. I wasn't in the weight room and all of that. And I was a two sport person. So it was just one of those things that I had made up my mind. That's what I was going to do, because of Coach Huntsman, because he was instrumental in me going to Ohio University, where I would have had other schools, Miami of Ohio or Toledo, that type
Did
of.
it have any bearing on your decision, like when like that Kenny? So my dad has a friend that is like my uncle. His kids are like my cousins, and we call each other cousins because he and my dad basically grew up together, and we all grew up together. And then he went to Ohio University also. His wife went to Ohio University. His wife and my mother are really close friends, and they go gambling together. And I'm curious, like, does did your decision, did Kenny going to OU have any bearing on your decision, or did that not, did you not
Well,
think?
well, after being recruited, because Ohio University, I didn't go to Ohio University to even visit until really around graduation, after I graduated, because I was thinking about going to Bowling Green, and Kent was in there too, but I was really going to Bowling Green. But that was instrumental, because once I got that offer, that was, because Kenny was, like I knew Kenny all my life, but I got closer with Kenny when I went to OU,
Oh,
because, friends, no doubt about it, and knew the families and so forth, because our dads were in the same club together, sportsman club. But then the thing about it, once I went to OU, he was the one that helped me as far as my schedule. I didn't know what 15 hours was. I thought you were in class 15 hours a day. I didn't know what they meant, 15 hours, taking 15 hours. So he was instrumental in helping me and setting up my schedule and all of that. And of course, I'll talk a little later, because going to fraternity, because I used to go to Alpha House when I was a freshman, my first semester. Then when Kenny was gone, then what happens? I was around some other guys, you may ask me that later on. Yes.
oh, well, we can talk about that now. So I never knew that you went to the Alpha House. I mean, I knew Kenny was the Alpha, but I never knew that you went to the Alpha House. I just always assumed because of Uncle Jim. So my dad's great uncle, or my great uncle, my dad's uncle, his mother's sister, my Uncle Jim, was always a member of Omega Psi Phi, which, is throughout our entire family. And now that I think about it, it's funny to me that I'm not an Omega and Kenny's son, Kent, is not an Alpha. Like neither one of us wanted to pledge. But I remember calling you after going to the freshman smoker at Hampton
Yeah.
and saying to you, like, I'm not ever pledging. Like, it's not for me. So but anyway, so you went, go ahead,
And
what?
the funny thing about that was that Uncle Jim was Omega, but he didn't talk Omega a lot to me. When Jimmy, his son, went to Ohio University his freshman
All
year,
right.
and when he came back, he pledged, and he
Alpha.
became
Yeah,
Youngstown. So
yeah.
then Uncle Jim, he said first thing he said, well, he wasn't even going to talk to me because of Jimmy, because Jimmy and I were so close, and then with Kenny, so he thought that I was influenced by by Alphas. But then see, then when I pledged Omega, the guy Elphas at Ohio University, they called Kenny, because Kenny was back in Youngstown then. And of course, I remember him saying, well, he has to cross the sands by himself. And but Uncle Jim didn't think I was going to pledge Omega because of Jimmy, because Jimmy and I were so close. And then Jimmy pledged Alpha. So, so nobody nobody thought I was going to pledge Omega.
um, so okay, so you've been, oh well, let's talk about mom for a minute. So you met mom, because we had this conversation recently about some girl or whatever. You met, where did you meet mom?
Met your mother at Ohio University.
But where? Like when? Were you
Oh,
at the party?
I really didn't know her my freshman year, her freshman year, because
I was
I
gonna say she wasn't there when you were a freshman.
well, I mean, my sophomore year. I'm sorry. I met her, I guess, my sophomore year when she was a freshman, but she was at the ate in another dormitory and all that. So I really didn't, I didn't see her that much. So, but in the time when she became a sophomore, when she ate over in the dormitory where we did, that's when we got to be tight. But I knew heard about it. They used to call her Virginia Woolf. So that was a album by Jimmy Smith out there. So everybody knew her as Virginia Woolf. She won't say that, but that's how that was.
I don't even know what that means. Like, who's afraid of Virginia Woolf?
That was an album by Jimmy Smith, and what happens? They used to tease her because she was from Virginia, because she was, I think, about one of the only girls that we knew her from Virginia. And of course, she was from Hampton, but my roommate my freshman year was from Newport News. And of course, she knew her
Oh,
and knew her by
your
Ray Critton.
roommate was your roommate was black your freshman year?
Oh yeah, yeah, Ray Crittenden from
Oh,
Newport,
that's right.
Virginia. We were line brothers together. He was, matter of fact, the captain of our line.
I didn't know that your roommate
And
was
see,
black because mom's roommates were white. Remember, she had those like, and they were those two white girls that she roomed with her freshman year.
right. Well, see, I was roommate with Ray Crittenden and Bob Blaine. We were freshmen together on the football team. And then what happened when Bob punched, and then before he came back, and then Ray and I were
Wait, hold on. So just so people know, when Dad says Bob punched, that means he flunked out. Like a
yeah,
lot of people don't know what that means.
he had a problem, and then John Yule and Glenn Hill, we were roommates for 2 years, and then my senior year, what happens? Leon Hogg and I were roommates.
Which
Yeah,
his daughter went to Hampton with me.
yeah,
And what's funny about that, like, so you all had this whole, um, there were like a bunch of you all because there weren't a lot of blacks at OU, and but you all kind of hung tight together, and they formed this club, which was an Ohio University investment club, which they still meet and have investments to this day, as far as I know. Um,
not we're not as active as we have been, but it was OU. A bunch of us, what happened? We separated, and Leon and I were talking about the idea of getting together, because I would maybe see Kenny Carey, who was an alpha, but when I would go home, I didn't get a chance to see those guys. When I say home, I mean Youngstown. So what happens is Leon said, "Well, we're going to get together and work on something." So the first year, my one roommate, John Yule, was living in D.C. So we figured that where everybody was, that DC the best location for all of us to go. So the first year, I think there were like 10 of us that showed. And after about 3 years, Huey Ball said, well, we ought to go ahead and invest. So what happened? We started investing, and we called ourselves OU Brothers and Associates. And that's when we bought the property down in New Bern. And we still kick ourselves now for later on. We kind of separated our own ways, and we sold the place. But a lot of we was called the OU Brothers and Associates. Most of us were Omegas. Kenny Carey, of course, he was an Alpha, and I think we had another guy who was a Kappa. But most of us were Omegas, and we had that property down there for a while. So that's something we kind of most of us kind of regret, that we didn't stay together, keep that property. Yeah.
so after you graduated, and uh, you moved back to Youngstown, yes,
Yes.
and you took a job coaching at South High School.
No, when I first
Oh
got
wait,
out of
after you graduated, you went to play semi-pro ball.
Well, what happened really what happened, I graduated mid-year, and I started teaching at Hillman Junior High School. That's where I had gone to school.
Wait, are we gonna tell that story? Oh
Well,
wait, was that Hillman where the things? Yeah.
right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's tell that story real quick because I don't remember how old I was. I was what,
Were you, were
three?
you, when we went to Hillman, then you were born by that first year at Hillman. And then the next year, see, I went to the South. And then remember, you probably don't remember, I was at South, and then I was acting system principal. And then, because the superintendent was going to put me in administration. And then that's when I wanted to try to, and said he was going to pull me from being a head football coach at South High School. And that's when talking to Rudy said, you ought to try college coaching. And I said, I'll do it. And that's when I had an opportunity and went to Indiana State. Remember, I
Oh,
hated
Indiana State, yeah.
just for spring. And then Rudy got the job down here at Florida University in 1974. And that's when I came down here and said I was going to go, wanted to come to a black school for 2 years. I told the superintendent of schools in Youngstown that I wanted to experience for 2 years and come back home to Youngstown because he was getting ready to pull me from being the head football coach at South to go strictly administration. So I said that, that was great, but I wanted to come down here just to get the experience. And I told him I'd be back home, and I've been down here ever since.
So let's go back and tell the story about Hillman. So I don't know if people remember, but there used to be these things, they were called a spindle, and it was like a wood block and it had a nail sticking up, and you would take like old memos and you'd put it down on the spindle. So basically it would say that you're done with that or whatever. And so my dad was yelling at a kid in his class and leaned over his desk.
No.
What? That's not right.
When my last year, superintendent put me at a middle school. And then during football season, I was at South. I was at Princeton Junior High School.
Oh, that was at Princeton, not Hillman.
Yeah, I was at Princeton, and they had the spindles that you put the referrals on. Well, a young lady came in there and I forgot what it was, and they would paddle girls or whatever it may be, and I put my paddle up, whatever it may be. And she said, Coach Bogan, you wouldn't dare hit a girl like that. And what happened, I was playing with her and I went and lunged like this. And when I lunged over there, the paper hold spindle was there. And what happened is stuck. And I got up there and I looked and I saw it. And the girl said, Coach Bogan, Mr. Bogan. And I called the secretary, and the secretary came and she saw it and she panicked, and they had to call the ambulance, and they turned around to take me to the hospital. But I went on and got in the car and went down to see Ernie Perry. Ernie Perry in his office, and you know about Ernie Perry. So what happened? He just came in and stuck his hand in there and pulled it out. So that was a traumatic experience for me. I got stabbed,
Just so everyone knows, Ernie Perry was a doctor in Youngstown, and he's actually related to Carlton, who lives down the street from me. So, all right. So let's talk about you left Youngstown and you moved to well, let's talk about Youngstown for a minute, because you are friends with so Bob Stoops, who coaches basketball at
football.
I'm sorry, football at I'm drawing a blank. Where is he?
He was Bobby Stoops that you were referring to, and you have Mark Stoops and Mike Stoops. Bobby Stoops was the head football coach at Oklahoma.
Oh,
and
right.
Then
I knew it was like in the Midwest somewhere, like in one of those middle states. I couldn't remember.
They went back to Ohio State, and they had the Stoops brothers,
But you played softball with his brother.
Bob
Stoops, nephew. I get them all confused.
Yeah, Bob Stoops, the uncle, was on my staff at South. But Bob Stoops has a brother named Ron Stoops, who was the head football coach at Cardinal Mooney, which is in Youngstown. He was there. And then, of course, Bob Stoops ended up coming back coaching. They were coaching up at Youngstown State for a while. But Bobby Stoops, the uncle of the Bob Stoops that coached at Oklahoma, was on my staff at South.
Oh, right. Okay. I don't know if a lot of people realize like all of the history that comes out of Youngstown, like because like every mall in this country was built by either the Cafaros or the DeBartlos, and the DeBartlos own the 49ers, and both families are from Youngstown. The person that owns Bowflex, he is from Youngstown. He lives in the same neighborhood as my cousin Michael. The people that and also the Bartlow sister lives in that same neighborhood as my cousin, or she used to. I don't know if she still does or not. So there's like a lot of history that comes out of Youngstown, Ohio, whether people realize it or not. Like it's a city that's in a valley, and it's not really even a city; it's more like a town. But there's a lot of the one thing that I appreciate about Youngstown is it really is kind of like a melting pot because there's a lot of Polish people, there's a lot of Italian people, there's a lot of um, Arab people, which my aunt Isabel used to call them Arabs for whatever reason, and but so and they all kind of just get along. Like I'm fascinated by the fact that my dad went to an integrated high school versus my mother who went to a segregated high school. Um, so and my dad, like likes to tell the story that there Youngstown there was no racial tension, even though my mom and I kind of looked at him like, we're not so sure about that. But anyway, so I'm fascinated by all of the stuff that comes out of Youngstown, um, as well as just there's a lot of historical stuff that comes out of Youngstown, and a lot of Black people that contributed to a lot of things that went on. Like my great grandmother and my dad's grandmother was appointed by the mayor for on all these committees. Like she was the Black woman and the educated Black woman at that. Um, and there anyway. I'm getting off topic. So
Nothing like my,
say that again.
it's like we saw. I always say, nothing like my town, Y town. And my father used to always say, Youngstown people have backs of steel, but hearts of gold. My father used to say that all the time.
So
But
my dad's dad died at 15, so I never got to meet him.
he was,
I'm sorry, dad's
I,
dad
I
was
was,
15, not
I
he
was,
died at 15. So my dad was 15 when his father passed away, so I never got to meet him. Um, and so like my uncle Jim was basically like my dad's father figure. Like he stepped in and became the patriarch of their family, basically. Um, so you left college, you moved back to Youngstown, you're coaching at South. You have me, you and mom have me. Mom's getting her master's degree at Kent State, and you're getting your master's at Youngstown State, yes? During that time, or did you already have your master's?
well, I got my master's, about 2 years after we got back home. Yeah, after you were born, I think it was about 2 years, 3 years. But I had mine. Your mother, yeah, because I got mine because your mother started working. Remember, she was teaching over Stanball, then she went to Kent State. Yeah.
And then so Coach Hubbard, who is the head coach at Florida A&M, invites you to come to Tallahassee with him as an assistant coach. And we moved to Tallahassee in 1974. Um, and you all have been there ever since. So you coached what positions at FAMU?
Well, when I first came down here, I had to, I was offensive line coach. And I was coaching offensive line when we won the initial Division I AA championship, and then I was linebacker coach 1 year. And then what happens after then I went back to the offensive line. Then when Coach Riley came, I was the secondary coach. And then when Coach Billy Joe came back, I was running back coach.
So
So
when he said Coach Riley, he's talking about Ken Riley, who played for the Cincinnati Bengals, who was recently inducted into the Sports Hall of Fame. And so basically, you've coached offense, defense, running backs. Didn't you coach wide receivers at one point too?
I didn't have not the wide receivers per se. No, I had the running backs. I had the offensive line coach. I was a secondary coach. And of course, again, like I said, I was backfield coach. So I was blessed because Rudy was a heck of a coach, and then Coach Riley get inducted in the Coach Hall of Fame. I was a secondary coach, so the thing about it, I learned from one of the best. And then of course Billy Joe, who was a great football mind. I was running back coach, so I learned a lot from him. So I was blessed to coach under three great head coaches. Yeah.
And then at one point, so this is my memory. So Joe Paterno called the house to because he wanted my dad to come and work for him, and I answered the phone, And of course, because I'm a kid, like, and I knew who Joe Paterno was, but I was, as a kid, I was very bookish. Like, I was more interested in reading books than I was in sports. It wasn't until later in life that I became interested in sports. But I still have that memory of speaking to Joe Paterno on the phone. And so why didn't you pursue that opportunity?
Well, at that time, you know, coaches, they were that's all they did was coach. And the thing about it, they were on the road so much. And the thing about it, I was going to have an opportunity if if he had offered me a job or I'd taken the job to recruit, the Youngstown area. I would have had a certain part of Ohio and a certain part of PA. But at that time, you had coaches that were on the road all the time. So it was one of those things that I would not have been involved so much with the day-to-day stuff, but it was one of those things that I may be on the road, go on the road Monday and be on the road up until Thursday night and then get in town Friday for a game, for the game Saturday, and then I'm back on the road again Monday. At that time, you had some coaches on the road most of the time. And I just wasn't, I recruiting was fine with me, but and being in a big school, that would have been a great opportunity. But it was the idea that I'm on the road most of the time recruiting because that's how they did it during that time.
I'm sure,
Especially
I'm almost sure they do it now. Like, that's how they, isn't that how they, like, I'm, most of these big schools with their, deep alumni pockets, I'm sure they have dedicated recruiters that
oh
stay on
yeah.
the road.
Well, see, now you have guys that are on the road all the time. Well, now they have a lot of limitations, but see, that was the thing that during that time that I would have, I would have been on the road. Like, say, I would have gone to the game and been there Saturday night, but I mean, Saturday for the game. But Monday or Tuesday, I'm on the road. And then half the time, what happens, they're recruiting people. So they're looking at high school, some schools, they're looking at a high school kid on a Friday night and fly into the game. But I mean, I wouldn't have been there every day preparing, and I just wasn't ready for that. I mean, I just, I wanted to be
Hey,
more involved
so
with
I
the
have a
coach.
question. So they wanted you to do the on the road recruiting and be responsible for the game, like your players and their
Well, yeah, at that time, you had a lot of coaches that were on the road and would come back sometimes, especially a lot of young coaches just getting in the game. They would just come back on a Friday night and be at the game Saturday, and then Monday or Tuesday be on the road again recruiting. And
so
I just
who's
I
responsible for the coaching that takes place during practice every day?
because at that time you had staffs that had 13 and 14 coaches. See,
Oh,
like it is today, because back during that time, their guys were on the road all the time. They were on the road, and recruiting. It might be they would be maybe they wouldn't be there Monday, but they might be at Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday's practice. They were leaving Thursday night. What happens? They're out on the road because depending on where they're recruiting, and then they're back for games. So that's why I was going to recruit. Was going to have me recruit the Youngstown area, a little bit like Newcastle and that type stuff. So I would have been on the road, like say maybe Tuesday and Wednesday, and coming back Thursday or something like that. So it was just one of those things at that time. And that's why they have all the rules now that you can't be out so many times. You can only make so many contacts and all of that. So
right.
I wasn't ready for that. It was a great honor, but and you boy, you were impressed with Joe Paterno when they called the house and all of that. But he just told me point blank, I was going to have the Youngstown area. I would be on the road most of the time, and I just didn't particularly because the job interviews that I had, like at Wisconsin, Northwestern, that's how it was. You had coaches on the road, and I just I wasn't ready for that.
Oh, I forgot Northwestern wanted, like, I forgot about Northwestern.
I went to Wisconsin. I went out to Coach Jardine was out there, and Dr. Bobby Lee, who's here in Tallahassee, he was assistant athletic director, and that's why he told me, said I can help you get the job if you want it, but I wasn't interested in going there. And Bobby Lee, Dr. Lee, he ended up being the athletic director at FAMU for about 3 or 4 years. So so I knew him from my little visit up in Wisconsin.
What's interesting is, like, what I know to be true about you is you are a creature of habit. Like, and so when something like, and you don't like a lot of change. Like, so even if it's for something that is like, in for lack of a better term, like a step up or a level up. Like you really prefer your own what you know to be true, like the consistency of what you know.
Yeah, coaching is when you get into a certain level. I mean, like they used to say a long time ago, you have two types of coaches: those who've been fired and those who will. And and I just wasn't one of those one to go from place to place. And
But won't all coaches be fired at some point? I mean, honestly, like you never were that I know of anyway. Like you, even after Coach Hubbard left and like you survived so many leaderships at FAMU that like you were never fired to my knowledge. And then but I think like that's par for the course with coaching. Like all coaches get fired at some point. Yes.
yeah, you have those, like I said, you have those who've been coached, who've been fired, and those who will if you stay in the profession long enough. And that's what happens so often. You have those who have, and those who will. And the thing about it, I was teaching. So the thing about it, I was cheap labor. Because see what happens, every coach after a while, when Coach Billy and Coach Riley, those coaches did not teach. So then
Oh,
therefore
okay.
they were strictly coaching. But I had been on the staff and had the experience, so they could hire me. For instance, I was cheap labor. Alvin Hollins, he would tell you, he'll tease to this day. I used to tell him, I wish every coach, if they paid me half of what the low man made, I'd have been pretty good. But it was always, well, Coach Logan, you coach. You teach. Well, I mean, yeah, I was doing two jobs too. And
So my dad was a professor at FAMU in addition. And so in my mind as a kid, I always thought of my dad as a coach and that being a professor was like a side hustle when in actuality it was the reverse. So he actually was a professor who actually coached and coaching was his side hustle. I
that
mean,
was my teaching, my job, coaching was my hustle. That's what I used to say.
I don't know why I thought that, but that's because I think because as a kid, you were always at the field house and you were never, well, yeah, you were always in your coaching office versus in your teaching office.
Well, I had two offices for a while, but then at first when we were in OJ Gators, I had that's where my office was for coaching and teaching. Then we went to
Yeah.
the field, for the field house. That was my coaching office, but I still had an office over physical education. But I was going back and forth. So a lot of times, students, sometimes if I had a makeup examination, I go to the old gym. But there were times that I had to come to the field house and be in the lecture room over there. Yeah.
Hmm.
Two
So,
jobs.
um, well, that was all I wanted to talk about. So, what is there anything you wanted to talk about?
No, because I see on the list, you talked about OU, you talked about state, you talked about Joe Paterno, coaching at FAMU, talking about great opportunity, about Ken Riley, Billy Joe, Coach Hubbard. And hey, that's that.
I have a question though. So when before you retire, and you've been retired how long now?
Well, my last year coaching was 210, and I retired 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I guess.
No. So you said 2010 you retired. Yes?
That was last football.
Oh, and then you stopped coaching or you stopped teaching, but
I
you were
taught,
just kind of like teaching as a little like you taught one class a week, Dad. Like not
no, 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 no. Oh yeah, just a couple of years ago, yeah, but
yeah,
because
that's what I'm saying. But you
sports skills class and my racquetball class, but I retired. I retired officially. I think it was 2010, 2012, and then after that, I was just teaching part time. That was my hustle.
so when I was a kid or when I was younger, I'll say, because I think I was an adult living out of the house, but you used to say that you were going to be a greeter at Walmart, or you'd be, or you were going to be a crossing walk guard. And
Right.
so what happened to that? Like, are, I mean, I do remember you and mom saying that y'all were you were doing something at the vacation Bible study, which was when I said, "Oh, y'all trying to get into heaven now." But so what happened to being a greeter at Walmart?
I'd have been bored to death trying to do that. But I laugh every day because when we go in and out, the crossing guard up here, he's a kind of a friend of ours, and I always holler at him. And matter of fact, he has a side hustle where he's the one that does our lawn and stuff. And shoot, he does 5 or 6 lawns. It seems like every day. And I always said that would be my hustle, just helping kids across the street. That just goes back because I was a traffic boy and I was captain of the traffic patrol when I was in Monroe Elementary School. When I was in the 6th grade. So that's what that
Which
is.
is probably why you got good citizenship reports. Ask me where my citizenship reports are now, and I have no clue. They're probably long gone in the trash somewhere.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep everything. You give me time, I'll find it.
All right. Well, that's the end of that. And I will talk to you later. Thank you for doing this. And
anytime, anything else you want to know, and nothing like my town, White Town, and I can talk about talent.
All right. Well,
I really appreciate it too. I do.
All right. Well, thanks, Dad. You and Mom have a good day.
You do the same. Bye-bye.
Right.
Love you.
Love you too.